Hey everyone. I am not in the state, but I did vote, just in case somebody questions. But I'm glad that we can catch you all tonight. So y'all probably can make a good guess about what Bible study is gonna be about tonight. We even hinted at it last week before Zay he a preaching fool, y'all. The thing to start preaching and prophesying last week. It was amazing. Tonight, um, this is what we do in Lift Moments on the Men. We talk about it, and it's based on biblical principle, and that's what it is. So, if it's a shock to your system, let us know. Uh, let us know if it's a shock to your system. Good evening, good evening, to my people who are just coming on. For the people who are gonna watch the replay, y'all know tonight. Again, I'm gonna repeat it because I said it one time, but y'all know tonight finna be about what it is. We are at midterm elections. This is what's going on. Waiting on Zay to come on. This is spot. Last week he went into a preaching frenzy. You hear me? Preaching frenzy. And then started prophesying. And y'all came right on to support it. We want to thank you for that. And being there with us. So tonight, it might lead to that too. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen by 8 o'clock. Yeah, I don't know. But the prayer is that people get what they need by 8 o'clock tonight. So I hope everybody had a good week. I hope that everybody went out and voted. We know who we serve on this platform, and I hope people got in good trouble today. In the words of the great John Lewis, I hope that was done and done well, and I hope that people they they voted with clarity in mind and heart. Um, and I say that because it's just a lot that was on the line in this election. And so, y'all please like this, live and share. They're getting really crazy about the algorithm too, and we really, 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 really um, we need y'all to share it. So, need y'all to get it up. Need y'all to put it out there for people to see. So, um, thank y'all for coming on tonight. Tonight, again, we are absolutely talking about midterms. And we're gonna do some work around it. Zay is working on his equipment. So y'all don't leave us tonight. He's gonna be on in just a moment. Y'all know he the political mastermind on this. That's absolutely not me. But tonight we are gonna talk about it. Georgia is a hot seat tonight. And Zay and I are both based out of Georgia. This is where we live. And so we have been watching it. I've been working and training um today, but I have been keeping up because I know what we do here and how we do here. So I don't know how many other people, thank you. I don't know how many other people are sitting in political hot seats tonight, eyes are glued, whatever it may be. But there are some things to talk about tonight that are on topic with what's going on. And yeah, if y'all watch us, y'all know how Zay and I bounce. But tonight, there's something about the Romans text, Romans 12, and when it talks about how to honor or how to pray for those that are in our leadership. And tonight, as Zay gets his stuff working and gets everything going, I want to put that in mind because our leadership and those that are sitting in leadership, tonight it could be a pivot for the worst or for the best in the state of Georgia. Race, color, all of that does matter. I'm gonna put it like this: sex matters, race matters, and and your socioeconomic status matters tonight. So there are two black men up for the same seat. These two black men being up for the same seat has people split. We've talked about this before. A lot of us talked about this when Barack Obama was running. A lot of us have talked about this when other black people are running against black people for powerful seats. Like, you can't have these two people at it because it splits the vote. I don't care. And God, I don't care how crazy Brother Herschel sound. I'm gonna go ahead and call him Brother Herschel. I don't care how crazy that man sound. He caused a vote to split because black man against black man. I don't care how educated Warnock is. Let's just talk about how people are seeing that it was okay. It was two black men. How do we measure them out? Measuring them out has led to this conflict, and we got a hot race tonight. So what does it look like? How do we keep leaders? What are we really praying for when we're praying for leaders? That's a question I'm gonna put on the table tonight. It's a question I'm gonna put out there tonight. What are we really asking about our leaders? Like, what are we really praying for? So I'm gonna pull up the text, and let's talk through it. I'm gonna pull it up because I absolutely believe that we really do need to talk to it. So for all of you who are watching, Romans uh Romans 12. Let me get there. And I'm just gonna put the text out. I'm gonna bring Zay up to speed when he comes on. But Romans 12. Romans 12. And I want to start at Romans 12 and 9. That's where I'm gonna start at with the text. So, and I have a roommate. So because times are hard. Come on in. You might Yeah, I'm live, but tonight Zay isn't on here yet. So people can see you don't want to come through. Because times are hard financially too, like when you training and doing stuff. So as you can hear the person in the background, y'all hold on, this is probably the most ghetto lift moments on the men we've done in a while. But again, talking about the election. I'll be right back, y'all. Literally right back. So came through. So Romans 12 and 9, starting in verse 9. Love should be shown without pretending, hate evil, and hold on to what is good. Like this is, and I'm reading out of the Common English Bible because I want people to get it tonight. Like, because this is the feud that is not just happening in the state of Georgia, but this midterm is probably the hottest midterm I've seen in my whole lifetime. Love each other like the members of your family. Be the best at showing honor to each other. Do not hesitate to be enthusiastic. Be on fire in the spirit as you serve the Lord. Be happy in your hope. Stand your ground when you are in trouble and devote yourselves to prayer. Contribute to the needs of God's people and welcome strangers into your home. Bless people who harass you. Bless and don't curse them. Be happy with those who are happy and cry with those who are crying. Consider everyone as equal and don't think that you're better than anyone else. Instead, associate with people who have no status. Don't think that you are smart. Don't pay back anyone for their evil actions and other with evil actions, but show respect for what everyone else believes is good. Like these are things that the church really don't. This is right, and this is Romans 12. Because we love to read Romans 12, 1 and 2. But this is the end of Romans 12. Verse 19. Don't try to get revenge for yourselves, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. It is written, revenge belongs to me. There's God talking. I will pay it back, says the Lord. Instead, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. But doing this, you will pile burning coals of fire on your enemy's head. Don't be defeated by evil, but defeat evil with good. So I bring this up. Good evening, Dr. Sherry. I bring this up because this is what these elections are looking like. Because we are supposed to stand in solidarity with people. But tonight, I know the hot seat of Georgia, there's a race going on between two black men, and we don't know who's gonna win. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know what's gonna happen. So we gotta be in prayer about that and how so to do it. I need y'all to chat it up if you can tonight. Because what does it look like if we have this ability to live in peace? Because the argument that's going on in this midterm is who is better. It's a lot of white supremacist thought, a lot of white supremacist culture moves going, and a lot of our people are falling for it. And then watch even how particular black movies are coming out and how evangelical spaces are trying to disrupt them and put nastiness on top of them, and how we're sitting in this space to where we're not honoring everyone else and what they believe. We're not. We're not even putting that on the table as we are trying to knock down things that are United States focused in the space of biblical practice. So checking on Zay, because I could talk about this all night from a sociology standpoint, not even social work. But sitting in spaces of looking at sociologists and anthropologists that have done their work around this grouping and what that looks like. So the political framework of America was never designed to be happy. It was never designed to be equal. It was never designed to do any of the things that we keep saying that it was. It was never designed for a Herschel Walker and a Raphael Warnock to run against each other. Can I just be like, nobody designed it? The framers didn't think two black men were gonna go toe to toe. And it was never designed for a competitive socioeconomic status from two black men to show up either. It wasn't designed that Warnock and Walker would have some level of influence on either one of these sides. And so tonight, Georgia is going to flip what needs to happen. It's going to determine what needs to happen, not necessarily flip. I don't want to put no prediction on something and it might not happen, but it is going to determine what happens and who has the power in the entity that controls the United States of America, whether you want to believe it or not. One of the branches of government in the Senate. And so the Senate is literally comprised of two individuals from each state. So what happens with that is that the voice of whoever gets the seat, hear me, is going to make decisions for everybody, not just for the state of Georgia. There's not a representative seat. This person gets to say yes or no, that it affects everything connected to the United States of America, the territories, the states, all of that. It now is going to have this seat is going to have power to change political power. What does that look like when we're sitting in a space where we need to be contributing? Because this is not the actions and the thoughts. Like, think about what just happened with Roe versus Wade. That didn't just affect women in particular, yeah, but it also affected how men have to respond now to certain things. It affects what black women do. There's historical evidence and facts that black women, like, literally needed Roe versus Wade because at a point, doctors had rights over their bodies no matter what. They could go in and snip and clip and nothing was there. Or if somebody raped them, just being honest, they couldn't get a baby up. So here we are back. It's a pullback. And then here we are sitting in spaces that feel like revenge. Like that revenge, you want to take it out. But this text is offering, this text is offering that we let God manage that. But these are real questions I have tonight about letting God manage something that is so prevalent. Like where are we sitting in that rage and in that revenge? So Zay, I took us to the latter half of Romans 12. I did 9 through 21 and really kind of focusing on where it says that let God handle revenge. Let that happen. And so if you coming up to speed, there's also in Romans that also invites us, and I want to say it's Romans 13, that invites us to pray for those in leadership or pray for those in the capacity of leadership. And like, how do we function with that? How are we doing that? Oh no, it's wrong. I'm sorry, I started the verse too late. It's supposed to be Romans 8. My bad. I mean Romans 12 and 8. If your gift is to encourage, devote yourself to encouragement. The one giving should do it with no strings attached. The leader should lead with passion. The one showing mercy should be cheerful. These are like the gifts that we don't talk about. Let her have. So that's why I started. Because tonight's election, and you came on here and preached last week. You was a preaching fool, sir, and then started prophesying.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That tonight, and it's already a question: when will God do this revenge then? Because tonight is something that I am sitting in suspense. I mean, you the political mastermind on this, so this Bible study, and for those of you who watching, if your pastors are not talking about the things of the world, like tonight they focusing on the Beatitudes or something. I ain't talking bad about pastors because that might be where they are. But tonight is it could change the fabric of how we do stuff, not just for the state of Georgia.
Um,
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I think you're 100% correct. I do want to apologize for being late, y'all. I was having technical difficulties. I tried to be on my phone shut down,
You
StreamYard.
told I told you.
Then I got here, my computer wasn't acting right. It was moving super slow. And I'm like, it don't ever move slow, but now tonight. So anyway, I'm just a little frazzled. Um, but yes, I do think that this election has a lot of implications. It is not anything new, though. It is something that happens at every major election. Democrats win, they take control of everything, and within 2 to 4 years, they lose it. And then
Mm.
Republicans come in and they redo everything Democrats established in those years that they were in power. And then Democrats win again, and Democrats don't are not willing to pull the proverbial trigger as the Republicans are. Republicans are willing to go down with the ship, so to speak, and that is why their legislation typically is more impactful and lasts long. Is because they're willing to make the sacrifice of governing um, and not being liked. You know, my mom and dad used to always tell me, I'm not one of your little friends. I'm your mama, I'm your daddy. And so I don't care if you like me. You're going to do this because this is best for you. And um, the Democratic Party doesn't want to do that. The Republicans have no problem doing that.
Well,
So if
let's
we're
talk
talking,
about it. But there's a flip there because there used to be the difference. Like Republicans used to be Democrat. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And how the parties flowed.
no, I wouldn't say that the Republicans used to be Democrats. What I would say is that the Republicans have shifted from their long term um, party basis, much like the Democrats have, much like people who voted. You know, it used to be that the Democrats were more, you know, when we go back in history, were more conservative, and the Republicans were the more liberal ones because the Republicans was the party of Lincoln, which helped to emancipate, um,
Here we go.
who helped to emancipate the slaves. And so when African Americans could vote, they voted Republican because of the quote unquote emancipation done by um, Lincoln, and because the African American leaders of that day who were able to have Lincoln's ear and other presidents identified with the Republican Party because they were. Then we get to the era of Ronald Reagan, and we see a flip flop in their politics. They become ultra conservative because when we see the introduction of Ronald Reagan, we also see the introduction of the trickle down economics, and we also see the introduction of the Christian right, which
So
becomes this conservative Christian alliance with the church and this political party. And so what happens is black people start to vote Democratic in the 1920s because of FDR and the New Deal, which allows for governmental assistance pretty much and allows for people to be able to be given things from the government. So, of course, poor people and African American people begin to vote Democrat, which pushes Democrats towards this more liberal spin that we see today. So, and I'm still having technical difficulties as my computer is blinking. So, forgive me. I don't even know how to control that. Um,
we can
I don't
still
even know.
see you. I had to come off for a minute. You sound good. Keep going. I'll let you know.
So it is those two things. And so when we see this Ronald Reagan with this trickle down economics, and we see Ronald Reagan with this faux conservatism, because I mean, let's be real, Ronald Reagan wasn't really living what he was talking about too. If you really go back and research his life, and he has multiple marriages, his children become alcoholics, his children become drug addicts, his children become atheists, but he finds a way because Ronald Reagan Jr. or the third is a devout atheist. Um, but he finds a way to marry so that he can win and he can support his base with this Christian right. And so then when they see how he wins in California, he has no real experience, no real but because he has a name value and he is known, and I mean, yeah, he may have been mayor of a little small town, he may have done some things, but he had no real experience to leapfrog into governor, other than name value, and then from governor into president. And some historians argue that by the time he won the first time, he was already in the throngs of dementia and Alzheimer's. And that is why Nancy and his handlers were so protective of him, because he was like the Manchurian candidate. He really wasn't there. Somebody else was pulling the strings. And so say all that to say is that when we come forward now, what we get is this muddled political space that
So say,
many
how do you
churches.
deal? Well, I was gonna say, how do we deal with that? Because now Romans 13, and I stopped at 7, but I probably could have kept going, but we'll come back to the keep going because y'all, I know y'all about to go in. Every person should place themselves under the authority of the government. This is biblioteer thought. Like these people, we gonna live by the Bible. And tonight, that everything you just said is finna repeat with somebody else if they win. There isn't any authority unless it comes from God. And the authorities that are there have been put in place by God. How true is this verse 1?
So when you look at this is also a political text. This is historically political text, because who is writing it? What's the context? Who is writing it, and under which regime are they writing? So when we look at the influence of some of these text writers, sometimes they're writing because they're being influenced by the different governments that have taken the children of Israel and have taken over the land and have taken over the Hebrews, and so they're writing in a form of appeasement to them. I mean, if you go back to when Israel asked for a king, God says, "I'm your king. You don't need another king. I'm your leader. All you need is somebody who would hear my voice and speak to you." But the people say, "I want a king." And so then when we go back and look in the Old Testament, and we see that becomes really the first introduction to real government. So now this idea spreads, and this thought of leadership, government, kings, emperors, which is really an African tradition, but the Africans shared that power, that even the chief had people that he spoke to, and that he used to help him lead. And there could always be a high chief, and then there could be lower leaders and people who influence them, including sometimes family members. But now what we see is that we see in America, because we ran away from a king who became a dictator, and supposedly we were afraid of our religious beliefs, we came over here to America and we did the very same thing that happened to us in the United Kingdom and in Great Britain. We did it to the Native Americans because we said they were unsaved. And so what I'm saying to you is that these texts like this are the basis for what Europeans and what the founders of this country like to call manifest destiny. If we can take it, then God is with us. Um,
Oh, oh.
and and so the Asians called it the right of heaven, or the what is it, the something of heaven, and I can't remember it, that said that if the Asians in China and Japan refer to it as the mandate of heaven, so that whenever a new emperor took over and their family became the new leading family, they said, if we were able to take you over, we now have the mandate from heaven, so you must honor us as the representation and the face of God. The Europeans took it as manifest destiny. We have the right to take over as much as we can, because if we're not meant to take it, then we won't be able to win. And that sounds good, and that was their basis for saying God gave them. And so then they put in God we trust. And so when we look at this text, This text is another form of this manifest destiny slash mandate from heaven, is that you got to honor the government because the government is influencing the church. And the church, instead of the church influencing the government. And so what you're seeing is that now, even today, it is the replica of it with the Christian right, with the Jerry Falwells, who told everybody that they were going to hell and they were this and they were that. But then you get caught in a sex scandal with a pool boy because you let your wife have a threesome and you like to watch. And so how is that the Christian right? How is that holy? And so, and how can you preach to me what is right and acceptable based upon the conservative ideal when you are doing the very opposite of what you say is the conservative principle and premise?
So
So,
I'm gonna give you verse 2 because you on fire. Let's go to verse 2, 13 and 2. So anyone who opposes the authority is standing against what God has established. People who take this kind of stand will be punished. The authorities don't frighten people who are doing the right thing. Rather, they frighten people who are doing the wrong thing, which I, again, as a Black person, I've heard that thrown. Dr. Sherry just said we have to ask, what was the church facing at that time? What is the church facing at this time? Because this text doesn't line up with what we are seeing. Period. In my opinion, it does not line up with what is happening to us right now. But this is the text that's being thrown around, and then go back to 12. And the reason I picked this, I heard it for one, and then it came, but and then go back to verse 12 with this asking of letting God manage it. How can we do that when this text is offering that we sit up under the thumb of it?
well, see, this is also one of those texts that they use when they enslaved us and to keep us docile and to keep us enslaved. It is texts like these that we as theologians and that we who have intelligence must question as to why it was put into the biblical canon and why it was translated the way it was translated. What are these words really saying? Are they, because again, yes, there is a some level of God intervening, I believe, in politics. Yes, God does care because God cares for God's people. But does God want us to sit under an unjust ruler? Does God want us to sit under a ruler that is killing our people? Does God want us to sit there and then we be punished? Because then that makes God a sadomasochistic person. Um, because if God wants us to sit under somebody who is abusing us, and God sits there and God enjoys it, then God enjoys our harm and our pain, and then that is the very opposite of what love is. And so God can't be loved and be sadomasochistic. And so I think that we have to question these texts. I think that we have to say what is the implication in these texts. We also see this used in the church when pastors want to have total and utmost control over their congregation and everybody else. They tell you to submit yourself to the leader, but does God want us to submit to a leader who is hypocritical, to a leader who will not seek God, to a leader who will not take care of the people and love on the people? See, I don't have a problem with the submission part. I have a problem to who I'm submitting to when that person has not themselves submitted, because the text and husbands have used this as well when they are abusive to their wives. Well, you take what I give you because I'm the head and you must listen to me. And so what do we do with this? When do we question? When do we push back on texts like this and look at texts that offer the very opposite of this? That we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and things in high places and all of that stuff. I don't want to get too deep. I want to go too far into it. So when do we deal with those types of texts where it says that those things are going to come down? Because if we're wrestling against it and God is on our side, then we're pulling down strongholds. We're pulling down people who are sitting in high places. We're pulling down. Let's deal with texts that talk about the children of Israel fighting against Pharaoh and telling Pharaoh to let our people go. Let's talk about the fact that Saul becomes a leader that does not follow God's heart and God removes Saul. What happens to these texts where we actually see God saying that, or texts that we can interpret as God coming against leadership that is not just and not righteous and not holy? What do we do with that? Or is there any text to offer a counterclaim? And if not, why aren't there any texts in our canonized 66 books? Why aren't there any texts if they're not? Why are they not? And so I think these are questions we have to ask. And so when you ask me about this election, do I think God is in the election? Yes, I think God participates. Um, I also think that God participates in the fact that we are a democratic nation. So God participates in that. God has told us to go out and vote. God has told us to go out and a supposedly democratic nation. Let me say that. And so we being the hands and feet and the ears and the eyes of God in the earth, then we should be concerned with this election. We should be doing something about it because we are what God's going to do. God's not going to miraculously come down and flip ballots. That's not what God's going to do. God's going to tell you to go vote. God's going to give you the ability to go vote. God's going to give you the awareness to go vote. It is up to you whether you go do it or not. So when we look at this election, people are screaming Stacey's going to lose. I don't know if Stacey's going to lose. I pray that Stacey's not. At church Sunday, I know our people prayed that Stacey wins, that Warnock wins. But I also know trends. I also understand numbers. I also understand historically accurate inferences based upon what we've seen happen. Now, if we look at it strictly from a historical sense, no, she won't win because a black woman has never won in Georgia, truly in a statewide that I can remember, unless I'm falsely remembering, has never won a statewide position for real, outside of like senator and state senator and state representative. Nobody has won as far as being governor or lieutenant governor, attorney general, anything. Thurber Baker, I think, was the first African American to win a actual executive level statewide position about 12 to 15 years ago at this point now. Thurber Baker was, and then he tried to run for lieutenant governor, and they slapped his hand, and you didn't hear nothing else about him. So I think Maynard Jackson was going to run, and he died suddenly and tragically. And I think that probably would have been our greatest and best hope, from a historical point of view. But then when I also look at how the numbers are trending, for her to for us to never have had a black person, male or female, and especially a woman in the South in Georgia, to ever hold a level of position like this, her numbers, although she may be losing in some polls, is still too close to call. That's a good sign to me because you got this conservative.
Yeah,
you got this
because
conservative
we
white
looking at it from a conservative view
yeah, you got
tonight.
this
Like
conservative white boy who is, the representation of everything that is Trump. Although him and Trump are not on good terms right now, you got this conservative white boy who carries guns on TV, who talks about shooting people and gives them, and then screams Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And then you have this black girl who went to Spelman, who has a natural hairstyle, who is not model-esque in the terms of Eurocentric views, who is actually only been between 5 to 8 percentage points behind him in a Georgia state election before the night of the election, and she has whittled that down to less. I think we got a good chance because we know Atlanta's going to come up and show out for her because
in Atlanta is, but like I guess pulling this in because it's midterms for everybody, and the only reason I'm just throwing the text in there because I want you to keep going. So verse 4, it is God's servant given for your benefit. These again are tonight we're looking at the abuse of the text. That's what Zay is pulling out because this is the stuff that has been landing all day from my standpoint. But if you do what's wrong, be afraid because it doesn't have weapons to enforce the law for nothing. Like again, he just talked about how our current governor in Georgia literally did a commercial holding a shotgun at a little boy, and he thought that junk was cute. Blowing up stuff in the background when he was running for the election last time. Like, but this is what he's gonna do. He's gonna blow up the aliens. Like this is what he this is what he said, right? So talking
but not
about
only that, he blew up the election. He stole it. He managed the very election that he was running in.
It is God's servant put in place to carry out his punishment on those who do what is wrong. That is why it's necessary to place yourself under the government's authority, not only to avoid God's punishment, but also for the sake of your conscience. Like, what is that?
So that pretty much tells us God is punishing us by giving us bad leaders, and we got to take it, and the good got to take it. And I guess it could be true. I mean, depending on how you look at this text, it could very well be, because if God reigns on the just and the unjust, why not God spank the good and the bad?
Y'all quiet in this church because I just got quiet.
You
And
know,
this is we're
so
reading Paul, but we're reading what Paul said why God did this stuff, and it is in a text that has been abusive over time.
so those are questions we got to ask. I mean, do we really want the politics of Paul, or do we want the politics of Jesus? Do we really want this rebel? Because if I saw something today and I thought it was apropos to this election, and so I reshared it. That and I think it was from Obery Hendricks, which would make total sense. Um, it says that if Jesus preached what some of the preachers are preaching today, he would have never been crucified.
My God.
And so I bring that up, and I bring that quote up, not willy nilly or just, without, I bring it up to say that if we're really going to challenge systems, that challenge comes with the cross. You know, Stacy doing what she's done, she's gotten death threats. She's gotten attacks. Warnock doing what he's done. Warnock for 30 years, has been clean. Nothing stuck to him. There was no scandal. There was no stench. There was no stink. He starts running for senator, and they start pulling up stuff that happened privately between him and his wife that was already settled and adjudicated in the courts. But they pull it up because if you're going to run, and you're going to run on a platform that is as close to righteous as humanly possible, you're going to catch a cross.
Yeah, like, can you say that one more time? Because the people, even on the replay, y'all need to hear that. Not you gonna catch a what?
A cross. Everybody wants to talk about catching a case, but we never talk about catching a cross. So it and the cross is not comfortable. The cross has always been a sign, not of joy, not of peace. It's just like y'all like to take the rainbow and say it's a promise. It's a promise of destruction.
My God. My God.
It's a
Today.
promise that I won't destroy you. The rainbow is a promise that I won't destroy you by water, but I'm going to destroy you by fire this next time. That's what it means. Now we can shout off the rainbow, meaning that God has given us a promise, yeah. But let's also be true to what the promise is. You're gonna die, and it's gonna be painful.
Ooh.
That's what the cross is. The cross is gory. It's destructive. In fact, it's so even in American history, the cross has we have a problem with the cross because the Ku Klux Klan took the cross and put it in our yards and burned them to tell us that Christ and Jesus and God was with them to run us out and to kill us and to lynch us because we were trying to fight for what was right. And so we caught a cross, and we caught a burning cross. It won't be water, but it will be fire next time. And so you caught burning crosses in your yard. And so you caught them because you were fighting for something, or you were living out your best life and your truth, and somebody else didn't like it. So when you start living in truth and you start challenging systems that have been put in place to keep you down, you catch burning crosses. It won't be water, but fire next time. You catch those crosses. Jesus even says, could this cup pass from me? And we like to shout off of it. We thinking he's talking about an actual cup. No, Jesus is talking about the cross. Jesus is saying that what I'm getting ready to do because this government has seized me and has taken me because I have challenged not only their political or their social systems. Let me put it that way. But now I'm challenging their political systems and their economic systems. See, we shout about the fact that the man who is locked up and we call in the cemetery with dead folk who is harming himself and losing his mind, and he calls himself Legion, and then Jesus casts that demon or those demons out and sends them into a herd of pigs. We don't talk about the fact that that was somebody's pigs and they lost thousands upon thousands of dollars.
My God, did you bring economics to the demoniac? Boy, stop.
We don't talk about that. That although it is dirty and swine, and so there's some socio-economic political implication in that. What is Jesus saying about economics and how the economics of the time is not holy and not good for the people of God to be touching and dealing with, because I'm sending what is demonic into something that is worth something. Let's talk about the fact that Jesus takes it, and Jesus does pay Jesus's taxes. But Jesus doesn't pay taxes based upon, he calls a fish up and then takes the money out the fish's mouth and gives them their money. And they're looking like, what's going on? But then Jesus also heals on the Sabbath day. That's socio-political, because now we're supposed to be sitting here resting and doing nothing. So we're supposed to leave people broken on a day that they could be healed, but we want to leave them broken because it's easier and best to leave them broken because we'll send them to a doctor. So when the woman touches the hem of his garment with 12 years, that is socioeconomic and political, because she is a woman who is not supposed to even be in that space because she's unclean, because she has a cycle, and yet she touches Jesus. Jesus blesses her, and then he heals her, and now the doctors can no longer take what she has been given for the last 12 years away. And so what we're talking about is when you begin to challenge those systems and teach like that and preach like that, and you look at Creflo, everybody's acted like they hated on Creflo, but he had 35,000 members at his church. So somebody was listening to him, but let him, when he changed and started talking about we are missing this moment on tithing, and God is not going to get us with tithing, then all of a sudden the folk who was saying he was wrong for preaching prosperity gospel, now they mad at him because he's saying the exact opposite of what y'all said he was wrong for saying in the first place. Why? Because now he's challenging a system. He completely demolishing a system that you need to survive, and you were just mad he was getting more of it than you were. But now that he's demolishing the system in his own space, now you want to talk about him again. So he can't do right. It's either you danged if you do, you danged if you don't. It's a catch-22. And so what
So
we're
we
seeing
catching,
is
so you catching crosses. Like look, we staying in the text tonight. When I say Zay so in the text, oh my God. So here we go. Verse 6. You should also pay taxes for the same reason, because the authorities of God's assistants concerned with this very because the authorities are God's assistants concerned with the very same thing. He's talking about tax collectors. So pay everyone what you owe them. This is the verse that threw me off, because it's telling you to pay your taxes. So you pay everyone what you owe them. Pay the taxes you owe, pay the duties you will charge, give respect to those you should respect, and honor to those you should honor. This is the part of the text that it pissed me off. Like, because I'm sitting there like, this is not how the government really rolls. Because if they do, I don't see people of color getting what is owed to them.
right.
I don't see no.
They never will. But it's the hypocrisy of the text, because then when we talk about tax collectors, um, like Nicodemus and others, we say that before they have an interaction with Jesus, they're evil because they are tax collectors. That tax collectors were considered evil and derogatory. But yet here it is that Paul is telling you to give the tax collector what you owe him. So is the tax collector evil? Or does the tax collector deserve what I'm supposed to give him? Because if he's evil, why am I paying into evil? Because now I'm supporting that which is demonic. So the hypocrisy of the text. What are we going to live out? Which one are we going to challenge? So yeah, no, it's about control. And when the people actually start, and this is the thing that I'm trying to get to, and I'll say this, and I'll just be quiet, is that if voting did not matter, they would never fight so hard to keep you from exercising it.
My God, we have 5 minutes because I got to do a hard stop at 8. Like Zay just said something that I want to keep going a whole nother hour. Please say that one more time.
If the vote did not matter, they would not try to fight so hard to keep you from exercising it. So when we talk about hypocrisy, when we talk about the text, when we talk about the politics of Jesus versus the politics of Paul, what we're talking about is that everybody has a space, a way, a part that they can play in fighting back against this system that is holding us down and that is trying to take our hope and our joy. They want us to not think that Stacy has a way to the governor's mansion. And they want us to begin to confess it because I do believe in spirit and I do believe that when we confess it, we manifest it. So I do believe that. So no, I'm not going to say that Stacy doesn't have a way to the government. I'm going to keep saying there's hope because I'm not going to give the devil my hope, and I'm going to go vote as a means of doing it because faith without works is dead, and faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Then that means if I got it, I got to keep my hope, but I got to put my hope to work. I got to do something about it. So I went and I voted, and I voted for the person I hope wins. So I'm going to keep saying, I think Stacey got away to the governor's mansion until they tell me and they call it. I'm going to say Stacey got away. I'm going to say Warnock got away back to the United States Senate until they call it and they say otherwise. I'm going to keep. And I went and I put my hope and my faith in action and I voted for Warnock. I put it in action. I did what I said, and I'm going to keep confessing it. And that's what I'm saying, because when we do that, that disrupts the system from the very places that we are. It disrupts the, and that is what gets us catching crosses, is when you disrupt systems. But if you don't disrupt the system, you get something worse than the cross. You get chains. See, one thing we learned is there's life after the cross, but the chains keep us locked in a place we can't get out of. Because they can chain us like the demoniac to a place that's surrounded by death, and we stay in that place of death. But if we catch this cross, we can move from the cross to resurrection. I'm just looking at the text. I'm just saying what the text showed me. So I'd rather be on the cross because weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. It was early. You know, if I was Baptist, we was in the church, we hear the music right about now. They start saying it was early one Sunday morning, and one preacher started going early. You know how they do. They early Sunday morning. So when the morning comes, when the and it's not just necessarily about the light. Morning comes at 12. It's still dark, but the morning has come. So it's looking dark, but morning has come for us. We just now got to go ahead and keep confessing it and walk through it. Paul is very problematic for a lot of us. That's all I'm gonna say. Paul is very problematic because Paul is dealing with Paul's own self. Um, I mean, you're dealing with a name change. You're dealing with who you love and how you love. You dealing with being a part of a system that dislikes you and hates you, but yet you now called to serve another system that remembers how you hate it and you disparage them. And so we can glorify Paul. I mean, we can try. We can try to make Paul seem like Paul is doing what God's called him to do, and in some regards Paul is. But let's not look at the fact or overlook the fact, that Paul is problematic because Paul is dealing with his own thorn that he prayed thrice for, and God said, "No, this is what keeps you humble, because you can't be this type of man in this type of government and in this type of system at this time, and you have this thorn." We don't know what the thorn is. Many of us historically surmise have made summations, and let me put it that way, about what the thorn could be. And because this man says, "I would that you would not get married because it would distract you from the gospel." which is where the Catholic Church gets this, and we see what happens with the Catholic Church with not getting married. So
Well,
I'm just throwing
let me get yeah. I hate that I have a time crunch tonight. I want Zay just to stay on here. He can if he want to. Zay, you want to stay? Yeah. If you did not vote today, our platform does not try to shame people. That's not what we're trying to do. But Zay said so many nuggets. If you caught this in the middle of it, please go back and watch the beginning. Skip past just my face. When Zay pop on, that's where you want to start watching. The question that was left tonight is two questions. We'll end with the question that's going to be the prayer. Because some people are like, you can't, you don't end the prayer in a question. Yes, it is. First question is, are you catching crosses or chains? Like if you're catching both of them are hard. That's what I say in practice when I'm working with people. Both things are hard. They're both heavy. One, on the other hand, is going to lead to some level of resurrection. It's going to lead to a rebirth. It's going to lead to a redo. And then one is just going to keep you stuck. They both are heavy. They both are hard. And then the word spoken tonight. How is your faith in action? And God, show me how to put it in action if it is not. Because tonight we see the text. I love Dr. Shear. She said power was ugly. But that's the text. The text say he wasn't cute. um, text say Jesus wasn't cute neither. Some of y'all don't even like to read that. Say he like an ordinary man. Just old regular. He wasn't fine. Like all these pictures we seeing. He wasn't fine.
neither
This
was
thing that,
David. It says he was ruddy. The text says
that
that David was ruddy, which means he was short and red. Nobody
so
wanted him until he
nobody
became
wanted
king.
him, including his daddy. His daddy didn't want him. I'm
Mhm.
telling y'all tonight, investigate for yourself. Am I catching a cross or am I catching some chains? And then how is my faith in action? And God, show me how to get it in action if it is not. Because the text is also offering action. It's not offering for us to be still or stagnant, even though pieces of the text we use tonight at the end of Romans 12, I'm sorry, it did say, let vengeance be of God. But it gave us so many other things that we needed to get done while God is getting his vengeance. It also said that we do need to sit in the spaces of honoring these governmental systems, right? This in not an argument, but what does that honor look like? Does it look like good trouble? I'm talking about John Lewis, because John Lewis under the government was some good trouble. Or does it look like being succumb to chains and being overtaken? How are we taking this and putting our faith in action for our communities, for our churches, for ourselves? Like, what are we doing to heal and become a people that are whole again? Black folks, we got stuff we got to do. So I'm praying for everybody's election. I'm praying that everything is well and good. I'm praying, the outcome, may the outcome be what the outcome may be, and may God guide the outcome. But it also takes our faith being in action. If your polls are still open, if you on wherever coast you at, get up and go get in the line and go vote. If you in the line, they can't kick you out. Go vote.
Yeah, but you got to be there. And
You
Reverend
got to be
Sherry,
there.
which you help push us sometimes. So thank you, Reverend Sherry. I've never met you, but thank you.
You got to be there. So go do what y'all need to do. Zay, I love you. I love everybody out here. Again, are you catching crosses or chains? And then how's your faith in action? Ask God to show you how you need to put it in action. If it is not, we love y'all. We will see y'all next week.
And if you see somebody with a T-shirt on saying, "Are you catching crosses or chains?" Tell them they stole it because I ain't copyrighted it yet. That came straight from me, from God. So if you see somebody else with that, they are a liar and a thief in the temple because that came from God to me. So don't let nobody
We
else
gonna get
walk
that thing
past.
on a t-shirt.
Yes.
We gonna get that thing on a t-shirt. We gonna get that thing on a t-shirt. We love y'all. Y'all be blessed tonight. Bye.